go ahead and get started. And sorry for the later. Had a bit of trouble getting this put together on my end, but I am Cassandra J. Bruner, and welcome to this week's installment of Poets in Pajamas. I guess before we get started, just a couple of things to sort of give background before I get to the reading. I just wanted to sort of talk through, just in general, like my project and what I've been like writing toward for a long time now. And so mostly tonight I'm going to be reading from my chapbook, The Wishbone Dress. And more specifically, I guess that book was sort of came, a lot of poetry about that book came sort of out of the period of time after which I started openly transitioning. And so a lot of what it's contending with is a lot of the anxieties and memories sort of brewing around that specific aspect of my life. From there, it kind of built into. From there, it kind of built into. Sort of started reaching out from there into sort of. I guess like other sort of mythologies and folklores that are sort of revolving around transness and how they've like sort of come to be. But yeah, I think that about that about covers where that's been at, and like I guess the main thing since there has been that once I was is that after the chapbook, then like one of the major things I've been writing about is this sort of series of persona poems from the perspective of characters called the Chimera Kids, who are like half animal and half human, and whose like experiences also sort of deal with like, among other things, like visibility and trans and queerness, um, as well as like impacts being closeted and stuff like that as well. So I'm going to be reading a couple pieces from that series after I read a couple of things from the chapbook. That said, we are at the hour, so let's begin just by reading with a couple pieces from the chapbook. This first one that I'm going to be reading is probably it's like I think it's the oldest living poem that I have. Aside from that, I don't think it needs much else in terms of introduction. Frontispiece. I think of how gods prefer their oracles blind and their prophets impotent. How 2 milligrams of estrogen was enough to mold Eve from a shard of bone. If only the world would hush, I could hear my skin thinning. Listen, sleep is a wasp's nest inside the mouth. Come morning, I am doubled over the sink, spitting stingers and weans, each heave a prayer for a homeland, a recitation of the Song of Psalms. In this manner, the body learns its shape. As I scrub the lining of my cheeks with lemons, the rinds speak in my great-grandmother's voice. Child, your hips have already fused. I gash in my mouth's themes of all themes made new as it hardens like a cataract. So the next one that I'm going to be reading tonight kind of comes from some research that I did about like animals that have that are sort of gender variant in a bunch of different ways, and this specifically is about there's this like tendency among like deer for there to be like does that are born with antlers, and it's sort of unfortunate that like the only reason that we really know about this is the fact that like they often end up getting hunted because they have like a rack of tines, and so the only reason we know about this sort of gender variances comes from the fact that these animals are being harmed or being killed, and that's sort of felt like an eerie, like sort of like an eerie similarity to how I guess like to like transness and humanity as well. But anywho, enough preface. Let's begin. The antlered doe. A man dows in roebuck piss, says, I saw it as I skinned its thighs, and laughs. Your death always a joke, the shock of womb a punchline. Darting through underbrush, your hooves resounded like cackling children. This velvet crown, not always a betrayal. In rutting season, the tons of stags and doe alike climbed your hind leg, crying, I opened for my beloved, but she was gone. Now is the hour of moths, and the body remade as a sack of buckshot. A child bundles you in sweat-stale flannel, lifting you onto the truck bed like a distant sister. Nestled against your snout, he mouths a wish for recognition, for his budding breasts to hide themselves away like fawns. So the next piece that I'm going to be reading, I don't think really needs much in the term of introduction or like preface. It was sort of one of the, like, and I guess that initial series of like poems I was writing, like post-transition, post-coming out, was kind of the one that I felt like ended up closing off that initial series, I guess like more confessional work. So, Psalm at the end of cicada season. 4 months the swarm fattened the air with noise, with the wax membrane of their wings. Now they've buried their young. Silence opens its forceps in the hollow of afternoon. Underfoot, amber husk chime once more. Is it wrong, God, to want a body emptied of memory? Here, rain bloats an exposed beehive. A collarbone sinks with the heft of its disappeared necklace, and I've spent 17 years translating timbrels humming beneath my tendon, muffled and promising as cricket song heard underwater. My next lover will call me her girl, watching as I molt dresses over doorknobs and bedposts. How do I explain the before? The prophets at the family barbecue plucking tongue-pink coals from the pit. How I swallowed each one searing, ready to dissolve into its answer. Or the plainer history stifled down my flank, its pockmarks and half-filled ditches. I've been a student of ecstasy so long, I've neglected what comes after. Those words we bury into mattresses, trusting they will return as butter congealed on dinner plates. So this next piece mostly revolves rather around this situation that a friend of mine and I were in when we were out in Tampa a couple years back, and sort of like a feeling, I guess, just I don't really know how else to describe it other than just like feeling like complacent, or like a moment where we felt very complacent or complicit in our in the way that we were sort of witness to what was happening around us. And so this piece is sort of written as a way of memorializing that, as well as to try to sort of like speak past that moment to our friendship itself. Anywho, with that said, let's begin. Drifters, for Kimberly Pavlovsky. Do you remember when salt first crisped your tongue? The sharp blessing of it? Between Seattle and Tampa, passenger jets empty their bellies into the uncorrected mouths of mountains. A hunger gone collective, so only an ocean can satiate us. And all our seafood shacks sizzling our names across the bay. Loads of grouper and rainbow tails of shrimp iridesce the grills. Below sightline, tanks of piled crabs. Their diffuse motions, like fatty oils in a saucepan, slide, slow, slower, then settle unwitnessed. What were we? Children of floodplains and gulfs, a displacement of water. Beneath crackle of crustacean, breading against molar, our histories, secrets skid across the table. Mayflies skating the meniscus of creeks. Outside, a hail of hard footfalls, knuckles against panes. A man's threats pressed like white caps over a woman's protest. We go static, cradling our own elbows to stay their trembling. The narrative's moored in my queer blood, your woman blood. The red shift of memory, of fear. Silence following like an accusation, I eat the crabs chitin to pith, wishing I laid my hand across your plate, palm upward. A pale offering, a halved lemon for want of the whole. And what of the light fractaling the room? Its wordless bulbs greened with solitude, made voyeurs of us all. So the next couple poems I'm gonna read, I guess the last couple of poems are ones that are outside of the chapbook. Again, they're coming from this like later series that developed around these figures called the Chimera Kids that are sort of like, as their name tells, like are both like half animal and half human in different ways. And so this first piece I'm gonna be reading comes from like the characters, from the perspective of the character that I've called Spinneret Girl. So like she has like 8 eyes and like web glands at the end of her at the ends of her mouth. And I guess the only thing about this poem you need to know is that it's also kind of working as an ekphrastic in response to Georgia O'Keeffe's Pelvis with the Distance, which is this really stark and brilliant piece that just like sort of like has this like pelvis like set in the foreground, and in the background there's just this like desert and mesa. But yeah, I think that's everything you need to know going in. So without further ado, let's dive in. Spinneret Girl before O'Keeffe's Pelvis with the Distance. Gehenna, I get it. I'm 22, surrounded by glimmering bodies at bars, yet all I do is yawn black rhododendrons and flakes of calcium. Are these dry heaves why, Gehenna, I long to settle in the sterilized landscape, nap in the primordial curve of this pelvis, to invite needled light to winnow my own hips? You know, Gehenna, I've studied each misnomer for hell, Hades, Sheol, you, to triangulate where my departed hang chimes from inverted trees, many of whom, Gehenna, march across your pearl-sanded floodplains, uncertain if they can roost. The murdered and suicides not wanting to be made cypress, rooted. It's funny, Gehenna, how few, if pressed, could read womanhood from these unanswering bones. How us who remember conjure eidolons, husk of spirit, out of rediscovered letters and plastic necklaces, and Gehenna, are you the heat swell, the shame flush inflaming my jaw shut and hushed for seasons? Or are you the memory drawing me toward traces of the boys, girls, children like me who spun escape plans and nooses out of their silk? Gehenna, mid-gallery, I prostrate before you. Let me enter your high deserts. Name me Yael, and pass me a stake under tenebristic light, please. Before it's too late, raise your dried rose hip. Gehenna, I swear, I see figures cresting the mesa. Though I may once have named you salvation, Gehenna, I'll tapestry you, my caustic membrane, out, in, and through me yet. So the last piece I'm going to read tonight is another one from that same series, with that same set of figures. This one, this also, actually, this wasn't my intention, but is another one that also doubled as an ekphrastic piece, in this case in response to her on Ms. Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights. I think aside from that, it doesn't need much more introduction, so let's just go ahead and dive in, and then we'll go to the Q&A session. Pimplume Boy's Garden of Earthly Delights. I don't recoil anymore when I daydream us in those hellish positions. Me, half crucified to an upturned table, and him dangled from multiple grind-glowing keys, waiting for the drop. Or us, twining each other around the exposed guts of skyscraper hearts. Meanwhile, the birch giant, like a rubbernecking god, unmoving and bystander, looks on as we tune strings till the thrum fuses our vertebra down to tailbone. My love is still thrumming when I remember this world where sunlight repositions morning fog to cloud. I brush the 37 nail heads in his knee brace, a fabric of godheads, before leaving. Sometimes absences come in multiples. Sometimes I pour water down the exposed snouts of foxes mid-heat stroke, then imagine a stream's birth, or sugar-pink fountains made of black widow legs and taffy gargoyles, or the gauze of fantasy peeling back as the radio speaker thrums, somebody's listening at night with the ghosts of my friends when I pray. Left exposed, I wish I considered what position these living past, multiplied, sepia, and without temperature found my partners in. What gods and lack of gods could be harmonizing in every there. Through pen or by needle, a nerve is loomed, multiplied over landscapes. Why is it simpler to turn away from the thrum, eyes sewn over with strawberries, as if any position could deflect memory? Walking home, I reach into an exposed birch trunk and find a tiny well projecting scenes without exposition. Lovers hand-faceted by their household saints and matron goddess. Pools birthing thrush-headed badgers and miniature hydras pose, dream possibly together. A lone giraffe with ostrich talons or maybe lion paws, whose hair thrummed as it glided off like silver confetti in multiples of 3. Before they ask already, and a voice multiplied by thousands, I glance back to hear. I know with the right position, I could become tetrapod and tear right through, but I glance back again and it thrums out. Here, where gods speak through abandoned beehives, uninvented dances, or friends' unheard laughter, but rarely all at once, all exposed. Where multiplication is the heartbeat of gods, or of a child you, begging to moldy baseboards and a venom oranges outside, exposed and waiting, still waiting. So, I don't know if y'all can see me still, but on my end it's saying the video dropped. Is that the case? Um, okay, you can still see me? Okay, cool. What we'll do then, I'm sorry for that very awkward pause. But I guess what I'll do then is I'll just talk really quickly um about one small, I guess it's like I guess like an aspect of my I guess of this like Chimera Kids series, and like just sort of talk that out a little bit because I know it's gonna take a little bit of time before y'all get your questions in. But yeah, I guess I'll just say feel free to go ahead and start dropping those in. I'm just gonna talk really quickly. Um, I don't know. I guess just about how the series developed more than anything. Um, it kind of was by mistake. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Just like like stumbled into this idea, and I wrote like this. I think it was back probably like 2 years ago. I wrote the first Spinneret Girl poem, and um, I suppose that from there, I just kept writing her enough that and like a narrative started developing as like, oh, I need to bring in other voices in this too. Um, and it ended up being like a thing that had three characters, it's spanning about 20 poems at this point. Like it's really gone places that I didn't really expect it when I first started out. Which I guess brings us to the first question that I think Sarah brought up, which is the sort of talking more about what draws me to depictions of like animals in my writing. I think on one hand, it's when I was a kid growing up, I was such a geek for biology and such a geek like well, zoology really more than anything. Like I thought I was gonna grow up to be a herpetologist or like the type of like which is the field of study for like reptiles and amphibians because I just adored everything about them so much. So I think it's just sort of it's kind of just delivering on that. uh, Something that that passion kind of stayed with me even though I found out I didn't have the mind for biology because as soon as math got involved, I was done, pretty much. But yeah, and I suppose on top of that, one of the other major, I think from there, it's also, it's something that I think it kind of gets inherently tied into because my work also often talks about faith or about mythology. Um, and animals play such a key role in all those things. Like they're almost archetypal in a lot of different ways. And I don't know, just like I guess like off the top of my head, um, there are uh, like a recurrent. I guess like as like one example, like there's like recurrently like I talk about cicadas all the time. I think it's in part because that's like where that was huge where I grew up because I like grew up in southern Indiana, and so like we had like a major spawning when I was like 10 or 11 or something like that, and I just like I that memory has stuck with me, and just something about them I've always found so like majestic and strange and kind of alien. Um, and I think then on which I think kind of holds because like actually like um again, this is the geek in me showing, but like I like researched it. Like I researched what exactly it is that uh like how like how they were seen in like other in like ancient societies, like in ancient Greece, like they were seen as like prophetic almost. And I don't know. It's I guess it's just sort of it's it's just been a lifelong obsession. Um, But yeah, oh, good question. Who are my influences? There are several. I think that I look to Paisley Rechtel's work a lot. If you haven't read anything by her, like I would recommend either Six Girls Without Pants or Nightingale. The way that that both of them just sort of like modernize and remake mythology um, is incredible, and just like also she just like her poetry is like both lyrical and narrative at once in a way that I think is really really compelling. Aside from that, I mean, sorry, I'm just trying to think. There's so many people coming to mind now. I think, I mean, I guess in light of her like recent Nobel Prize, Louise Glück was like one of the first poets who like showed me what poetry could do. Like when I was in like my like first workshop in undergrad, like I was given the poem Mock Orange, and it just absolutely opened my eyes, like blew my world like wide open, and I knew I wanted to commit after that point because of that poem. Um, I guess just a couple other ones off the top of my head. Um, I've been really inspired by Caleb Ray Kendrilli's work. Um, Also have been also in the same way Chase Berggren, who like did like a book length erasure of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is absolutely stunning. Um, I think Bridget Picking Kelly has also been sort of a guiding light for me, sort of in how she kind of creates new folklore Um, I think now I just want to sort of turn around and get to my bookshelf and see what else is over there. But um, yeah, I mean, I guess um, Eduardo Corral was also huge for me because like in that same class where I first started, where I read Mock Orange, like um, we read that book and it was immediately after that book came out, and it was just it again it just sort of it opened my eyes to what it could do and what poetry was capable of, like because of that it was a bunch of different forms, that it was a bunch of different types of narratives it could take on. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to see what else is right here. I think another major influence poetry wise, it's been Tracy Brimhall. Like I think that her work has just been um, has been really important to me, especially in the way that I think to like navigate that this sort of I guess sort of like almost like magically real space in poetry, but also um, I think the way that she talks about things like faith has always been incredibly honest, and in a way that like pushed me to um, like sort of open my eyes to possibilities in the same way. I think that's I guess like outside of that, when it comes to like prose, I'm like I think Jeanette Winterson is a huge one for me. Um, I've also been really inspired by um, Carmen Maria Machado um, and Maggie Nelson and others. There are so many people I want to name right now, but I know that if I keep going on this route, I will end up taking the whole time just listing out people's names. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think really anyone whose work borders on the magically real, or on sort of the remaking and reclamation of myth is sort of my cup of tea. Um, I'm not seeing any other questions on my end yet. Um, so I think I guess like one thing that I guess like I would want to bring up or talk about then, um, kind of in that okay, perfect. Actually, we'll run with that question, and that's much better than the stuff I was about to say. So the question was, do you have anything you were especially interested in diving into next in your own work? There are a couple plans I have right now. It's mostly speculative. It's mostly stuff I haven't gotten into yet. Um, but I think on one hand, I mean, when it comes to like the first full length book, um, I've been like mapping and remapping it like pretty consistently over the past year or so, and I'm hoping that like by like around this time next year it'll be done. And it's basically it like a lot of the stuff in my chapbook will be in it, but also it's going to be there'll be about like uh, it's going to be sectioned. I think there's going to be two, three other sections in it, and it's going to bring in the Chimera Kid poems, and then another section that's going to swirl around a lyric essay. Um, Outside of that, I guess in the long run, I'm also looking at two other projects, like one of which is like, and this might be a bad idea. This first one I'm not sold on yet, but it would be to rewrite Hesiod's theogony in a modern context, where like the Olympian order falls apart. But I um, am still uncommitted to that. And then I'm also hoping to do like a book length lyric essay in the long run too. That sort of is about like more than anything else, um, sort of just like the uh, I think talking sort of about like sort of the crossover between like transness and or queerness, like mental like so that there's that bubble. There's like mental health and psychosis, and then there's like um, uh, expressions of faith that are more mystical, and sort of like trying to find a way to personalize that and then bring them all together. I've barely started that one yet, and it's probably going to take me about like another 2 or 3 years before I even like really decide to pick that up, just because um, it's like I want to write about it, but I don't know if I'm ready to yet. But yeah. Oh, another question. Yeah. So about how to approach writing an ekphrastic poem. Um, I mean, I think that we see plenty of examples of a bunch of different ways to do it. Like I think famously, like there's like Auden's ekphrastic about of the painting of like Icarus falling to the sea, and like it's basically just a straight replica of like the original painting. And I think we see a bunch of different things like that. But I think for my money, where I've always fallen with it is just I will look at the image and like look at the painting and like take images from it, like key images, and just have them in mind as I'm writing, um, and let it sort of fall into place that way. And I think in the case of these two ekphrastics, since they're based off of um, there's sort of like these personal poems that are very voicey, that I wanted the voice to be the central aspect of it, not necessarily the elements from the original painting. Um, and so because of that, that's why things sort of had to. That's sort of why it's sort of like a whirlwind, and I think that's something that helped too. Weirdly, with the Haran's, with the one based off of Garden of Earthly Delights, that piece is also a sestina, and I think like having that form as a constriction actually helped me out, because it helped me sort of return to like the same like images that like revolve around the same concept or the same ideas, which sort of help it like sort of keep an almost obsessive quality to the voice. Um, yeah, uh, it looks like we are at time. I guess like any like uh I don't know, just like any like last burning question before we go. Okay. Then I think let's go ahead and close up shop. Although really quickly, I do want to like, quick shout out. Thank you, Dia. I hope I can live up to rewriting the theology like that. But thank you. Um, but yeah, it was so wonderful to get to spend some time with y'all this evening. If you're looking for, if you're curious about the chapbook or wanting to look for it, uh, you can find it on Bull Press's website. Um, or if you can message me, if you message me through my website, I could also give you a signed author copy as well, which is Venmo or something like that. Anywho, I think that's all I have for you. And thank you again for coming out. This was such a blast, and have a good night. Bye.